Coby White is having an absolutely out of control season for the Chicago Bulls. Look at this graphic that they put up during the game last night. One of the highest points per game jumps that we have in the league this year. And I would actually argue that his jump is the most impressive of anybody on this list. When you look at the other names, we knew that Cam Thomas was good. This is a guy that has scored 40 points in a game multiple times, sometimes multiple games in a row. That one's not super surprising. Şengün, we knew Şengün was good last year. He just needed to play more. Under a new coach, he's playing more. The Jalen Johnson one was a little bit surprising, but again, it's a guy that's in his first few years in a league that's just getting more playing time. But Coby White, and especially in this game last night, is showing a completely different level that I did not know he had. Like, when you go back and look at the stats at the beginning of Coby White's career, there were definitely a lot of concerns. I liked him a lot as a prospect, as one of the better guards in his class, as a top 10 pick. I thought that he was explosive, he could score, he was a great athlete. Obviously was limited in terms of his size. He's not some kind of 6'6" guard out there or anything, but very, very skilled. And I was excited for what he could be in the league. And when you look at his stats through his first couple of seasons, he was getting a lot of minutes, and in his second season, I mean, he had pretty good numbers, but the efficiency was always an issue, and he was never someone that I thought looked particularly good in an NBA game. He'd have occasional explosive scoring performances, but he didn't get to the free throw line a ton. He wasn't a great pull-up three-point shooter, and even though the three-point volume was there, it wasn't really as an on-ball creator kind of guy, and so pretty quickly he became this player that could attack sometimes, could get out in transition sometimes, but mostly was being relied upon as this like spot-up shooter kind of guy, which is not what I thought he would be in the league. And then after a handful of seasons, I basically gave up on Coby White. I was like, okay, he'll probably be a decent bench guard, but any kind of concept of him being a starting caliber, creator for any team, that idea was just gone. I mean, there's a reason that he's signed to the contract that he is. He's a decent young player, but coming into this year, the expectations were not super high. His numbers started to go down. Clearly, he didn't have the trust of the coaching staff as much, and there just wasn't as much development as you would want to see. But this season has been a completely 180, not only for Coby White, but for my opinion of Coby White as a basketball player, because Chicago in the beginning of the year not only looked like one of the worst teams in the league, but they were one of the worst watches in the entire league. They didn't look like they were having fun at all, and they have done, as I said, a complete 180, just like Coby White has for his career. That's what Chicago has done for their season. Zach LaVine gets hurt, Coby White gets more opportunity, and all of a sudden, he's a 20-point per game guy. He has done something that is just not supposed to happen. After 4 years, especially now in the modern NBA, we're supposed to know who you are as a player. Even if you come into the league as a really, really young prospect, we're supposed to know who you are after 4 seasons. You're not supposed to become someone completely different just because you're getting more minutes because somebody got hurt. And it's incredibly important to the future of the Bulls as well. Here's what's happened with Coby White. There's been a couple of big things for him this year. One, it's clear that he's more comfortable in a volume role. Having more opportunity is helpful to Coby White. It allows him to get into a rhythm, and you can tell that he's not wondering when he's shooting, oh, should I be shooting this? Am I going to get pulled out of the game if I shoot this? He's just being aggressive, and there's a confidence level there that's really good to see. The other part of this is he's expanded his game from just being a spot-up shooter to shooting a ton of pull-up threes this year, and that is such a dangerous weapon. If you are as quick as Coby White is and can get to the rim, there's only a handful of guys that aren't stars that shoot pull-up threes out of ball screens really well. It's like him, Anthony Simons, a couple other guys, and that is such a dangerous weapon, as I said, in your offensive arsenal, because it's so concerning to the defense that you could literally pull up from any part of the floor. And Coby White adding that to his game this year has been huge. He's also getting to the free throw line more, which is always a couple of free extra points per game. That's what all the best players in the league do. They get to the line. White's numbers aren't outstanding, but they are better than they were earlier in his career. And the assists are up. Now, obviously, the assists have to do with having more opportunity on the ball, as I mentioned, not being that spot-up guy, but there has been some growth, not a ton of growth. I'd still want to see more improvement there, but some growth as a playmaker, as a creator, and with his vision. Before, there was a lot of tunnel vision stuff. Now there is a little bit more playmaking. Still something I want to see him continue to improve on, but that's the version of Coby White that we're getting now. Someone that can get to the rim, get to the free throw line, shoots pull-up threes at a good rate, shoots a ton of threes per game, fits well alongside of non-spacers like Alex Caruso and DeMar DeRozan in Chicago. And it all culminates in this game last night where Minnesota's up 23, doesn't even look like it's really going to be a game at halftime, and all of a sudden Coby White just goes crazy in the second half. He's hitting every shot that he looks at. The Bulls are playing weird lineups where Nikola Vucevic and Andre Drummond are starting together in the front court. So literally Coby White and I guess Vooch are like the only spacers on the floor in their starting unit, and it just doesn't matter. Minnesota's the best defensive team in the league this year, and they could do nothing to stop Coby White. And not just for this game, but in general, this is massive for Chicago for a couple of reasons. One, it allows them to move on from the Zach LaVine situation in the offseason. He's going to have season-ending foot surgery, so he's out for the year, so he's not going to get traded at the deadline. But they clearly have something here with Coby White, and they don't need to keep Zach LaVine around. They can try and get some value out of him in the offseason. And also, this era of Bulls basketball has been kind of defined by just barely missing out on guys in the draft. They got Patrick Williams at 4 in a draft class that included what we thought at the time were 3 really good players, and Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, who didn't work out, and then LaMelo Ball. The Bulls ended up at 4 there. Coby White was a top 10 pick, but was not in the top 5. They have a couple of other guys that they've drafted throughout this last 5 or 6 years that they've just always been a little bit outside of a core foundational piece for Chicago. And Coby White becoming that would be massive for them because they don't have those kind of foundational pieces, as I expect them to kind of go into a bit of a rebuild in the offseason, and having someone to potentially build around in Coby White is huge, or potentially trade him down the road because his contract is a huge part of this as well. Part of the benefit of a guy struggling for a couple years and then becoming really good is you can sign him to a really cheap deal. And Coby White is on a cheap deal for the value that he is providing to the Bulls right now. And I cannot overstate how big of a future piece this is. And as weird of a season as it has been for Chicago with all the injuries, they're playing a ton of guys that I'm sure they did not expect to be playing right now. If they come out of the season with a foundational piece in Coby White in the backcourt, that is one more foundational piece than they thought they had in the beginning of the season. There were already concerns about the long-term health of Zach LaVine even before the year. There were concerns about the overall ceiling of the group before the year. But now you have an opportunity to really build around something. And it's definitely kind of a story of, for me personally, and for I'm sure a lot of other people, not being too harsh in your evaluations of young players. Coby White shows up to the league as a 19-year-old, and after 4 seasons, he's like 23, and I'm like, this guy probably doesn't have it. And honestly, he really didn't. I mean, it's hard a lot of times for guys to regain their confidence level when they come in as a lottery pick. They're good for 2 years, and then they aren't as good for 2 years, and it's like, how do they really get back to being the guy that they were supposed to be? Or are they just going to kind of fall into a little bit of a role player type mentality? And I don't know if this is going to sustain for Coby White. I don't know if he's going to be a 20, 25 point per game scorer throughout his career, but it's clear that he has improved in a significant way. And no matter what, this provides value to Chicago, whether it be on the floor or potentially as a trade asset. And it's something that is completely unexpected. I thought Coby White was going to be like a rotation guard, score 9 points a game, make a couple of threes per game, and call it a day. But now, as a result of the way the season has gone in Chicago, he has gone and turned himself into 20 point per game scorer. It's one of the coolest stories of the year. And again, just kind of a story of maybe not over evaluating or being too negative in your evaluations. I'm talking about myself here within the first couple years of these guys being in the league.